Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Monty's Inside the Jar. I'm Brian B. O'Brien, and joining me tonight is auteur, artiste, and actor, Tiffany Svetlana Anastasia Romanoff III. Good evening, Tiffany.
Hello, thank you for having me, Brian.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, our audience obviously know you extremely well from Monty's All-Star Jam Jar, and we'd like to understand a little bit more about how you came to be involved in the show in the first place.
Certainly. So, one morning I was at a bus stop, waiting presumably for a bus.
Presumably for a bus?
Yes, after the accident. I don't remember any of my previous life.
Really, nothing at all?
Yes, it's a complete mystery who I was before this very moment.
Extraordinary.
Yes, I have nothing at all to remember of my previous life, other than this meticulously kept journal of every second of my previous life, which I carried on me at the time.
And does it illuminate anything?
Only that my life was very boring.
I see.
So, I was at the bus stop, when all of a sudden it collapsed around me, and as I was laying there in the rubble, a face appeared above me, and that was the face that would one day become Danny May.
So he was not Danny May at the time?
Oh, no, I beg your pardon, he was still Danny May then.
I see.
Yes, and sort of in the middle part as well.
And still now, as I understand it.
Yes, he continues to be Danny May to this very day.
And he rescued you from the rubble?
Yes, he picked me up out of the rubble in what I initially assumed to be a charitable act of kindness, but what later turned out to be an attempt to escape criminal charges for the illegal possession of an electrical scooter and the destruction of government property, specifically a bus stop.
So he was the one who destroyed the bus stop?
Yes, that was him, yes. So he took me back to his flat and attempted to nurse me back to health. I say nurse me back to health. He sort of handed me a fistful of kind of crusty socks, and I held those to my head, and that seemed to staunch some of the bleeding. And while I was there, I met Richie. And Richie was living there at the time because it was his flat. But Dan had explained to him that he needed it more, so...
Yes, well, at the time, the flat, as you've described it, was also the Monty's office. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And do you think you could describe what the conditions there were like at that time?
Certainly. I would say the easiest way to describe it would probably be, that classic I'm a little kitten hanging from a tree poster.
Of course.
Yes. And the kitten is sort of looking up into the sunlight, hopefully off into the distance, dreaming of a brighter future. And beneath where the kitten is dangling on the very flimsy tree branch, hundreds and hundreds of jars of urine.
Jars of urine?
Yes, hundreds.
Metaphorical jars of urine?
Literal jars of urine.
I see. Now, you mentioned briefly there meeting Richie Mansfield. Richie, as I'm sure you're aware, as everyone worldwide is aware, is an enormous fan favourite. And I was hoping you'd be able to share some anecdotes about the time that you've spent with him and what he's like.
Richie is obviously quite the fan favourite, and I think a bit of a cast member favourite as well. I think everyone's got a bit of a soft spot for old Richie.
Absolutely.
Yes. Richie was initially our head writer, so he drove a lot of the project at the beginning, and was enormously productive initially. He had so many ideas, so much sort of passion for his work, and such drive before the incident. Oh, he once wrote a brilliant novel.
Really?
Yes, it was genius. I think he probably could have been, the next Kafka, the next Joyce. But that early work was unfortunately lost to a more recent project, which he describes as his perpetual motion origami railway.
I see, and does it work?
No, unfortunately the first time he used it, it caught fire and burned.
Ah, a shame.
Yes.
Was there anyone else present during those heady early days at the Monty office?
Well, yes, I think the team sort of gradually developed. Obviously, it began with Richie, Danny and myself. And later, Ed joined the team. And later still, Ed began to contribute. And later still, we added the incomparable talents of Nana Sophie.
Of course, a wonderful singer and an incredible actress. What's she like behind closed doors?
She obviously has contributed a lot of music to the show.
Of course.
But I think also she has contributed a lot of fear.
A lot of fear?
Yes, she is incredibly terrifying. And I would consider her to be one of my closest friends. But I think primarily because I would never dare to cross her.
But why is she so frightening?
Oh, well, she spends a lot of her free time looking at photographs with the eyes cut out and whispering, "Soon, Sergio, soon," and sort of things about terrible vengeance which she will wrought.
I see.
But generally speaking, I don't think she's not an exceptionally violent person. She's never been violent. Oh, I tell a lie. I did see her once rip out a man's heart.
My God.
Yes, that was quite... But on the other hand, that pizza was extremely late.
Ah, well. There is a burning question that I've been absolutely demanded by fans and even by other people in the office. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little interested myself. I would like to ask about someone who has spawned legion fan theories, the man, the legend, Gordon Shumway.
I would like to begin by dispelling a few of the wilder rumours about Shumway. He is not the King of Morocco. He is not several Butlins redcoats stacked on top of each other in a tower. He is definitely not a small kingdom of sea turtles in the Midwest. And most importantly of all, he is absolutely, definitely not Edward Price. But he does exist.
He is real?
Yes, he is real. Well, I've never seen him.
Oh.
But there was always definitely evidence that he'd been in.
So he never came into the offices while you were there?
No, he used to come very late at night and leave his ideas for sketches in the offices.
Do you have any insight into his creative process?
Yes, I would say he's someone who is able to really weave a narrative. And by that I mean he used to leave very large medieval-style weavings of his sketches in the offices in lieu of anything written down.
So actual tapestries. We're talking about tapestries.
Yes, enormously long tapestries weaving in and out of the offices with his sketch ideas on. Highly detailed, really very beautiful, yes. Extremely graphic in sections. We had to burn several of the sections out completely before we could let Richie in for the day.
And how did you interpret these extraordinarily detailed graphic tapestries into the written sketches that we hear?
Well, generally speaking, we would just sort of start at one end and work our way through. Which is obviously not a flawless approach. I think in the earlier seasons there were several sketches where we probably got the end wrong, and I think that's apparent.
An extraordinary insight into the work of a man who has been acclaimed as his generation's Bob Dylan, Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac. I'd like to move on now to Edward Price. Have you been in contact with him at all since his unfortunate breakdown at the end of Monty's second season, subsequent rehab, subsequent relapse, rehab again, etc.?
I think I would be open to receiving contact from Ed. I'm not currently in contact with him. I would also be open to continuing not to be in contact with him.
I see. But you wish him well?
Oh, yes, I wish him well, and he can probably do it.
Okay. And as you became involved in working on the show itself, do you feel like it lived up to the expectations that you had for it?
There was a great deal of a real atmosphere of hope, I think, in the early days, that I don't know has been present in some of the more recent seasons.
You feel it's changed?
I do. I think that, power takes everyone differently. And I think some people took things too far in the name of art.
Now, when you say some people, to whom exactly are you alluding?
Specifically to Danny May.
Please be advised that sections of this interview have been edited by me, Danny May, pending legal proceedings.
How would you characterise the way in which he's taken his power too far?
He had certain tricks he liked to use that he felt would somehow encourage greater heights of performative excellence in us. For example, he had a number of
puppies
that he had our names printed on, which he used to throw at us when he felt we were doing a particularly bad job, which was all the time. But I think Dan would probably argue that he is an artist, and therefore anything he does is art. He used to scream that at us quite a lot, mainly when we asked him to stop shitting himself in the office.
So, would you say that Danny's outlandish approach and what some people have described as his sort of
I'm a creative genius
eventually ended up stymieing the process of making the show?
No, I would say that often it did make it better. But I would definitely say that his behaviour towards certain cast members that he has felt particularly artistically threatened by has been significantly worse.
And would you suggest that you are one of those performers?
I would suggest that, yes.
Completely delusional.
And nobody would question that, but the conditions must have been extraordinarily difficult to work under.
Yes, there were several days when we came in, and he was obviously extremely drunk.
Sober and wearing clothes.
There was one day when myself and Anastasia were walking along the corridor to the studios, and he noticed us walking along the corridor and stumbled out of his office and began screaming at us. And as he was screaming at us, he just all of a sudden...
boxes of chocolates.
over my shirt. It was just everywhere. And oh God, the smell. The smell was just...
fine and normal.
I'm slightly vomiting thinking about it. And I just didn't know what to do. I just stood there with Nana Sophie and...
delightful chocolates.
down my shirt.
That is absolutely, without a doubt, the most
fine and normal
thing I have heard to date on this show, and we have interviewed Edward Price. I'd like to thank you for being so candid and for sharing that
legally inadmissible
story with us. And for all of our listeners, I'd like to remind you that the Inside the Jar helpline is available 24 hours a day for anybody who has been affected by the issues that you've heard today on this show. Call anytime, the number on your screen now.
Yes, I would also like to throw my support behind the helpline. I know myself and the cast have used it on a number of occasions.
Thank you. On to lighter matters. Many people in our audience will already be aware of the many projects that you have outside of Monty's All-Star Jam Jar. But for those of our listeners who haven't heard your other works, could you give us a little bit of insight into the other things that you're working on at the moment in between seasons?
Well, I've got a couple of exciting projects coming up. My first one is I've got a new app out.
A new app?
Yeah, so that's exciting. It's called Hat Chooser, and you can upload your existing wardrobe of hats into it, and then it will tell you which hat that you already own goes with the outfit you're wearing that day.
Fascinating. And who would you say you see as the core demographic for this app?
I would say primarily hat wearers. Sort of wearers of hats, mainly.
Yes, that makes sense. I mean, I'm obviously not a fashion mogul, but do you think you could expand it to other, items of clothing, say shoe chooser, something like that?
No.
No, okay. Yes, okay. So, apart from hat chooser, what other irons do you have in the fire?
Well, I've also got a new range out.
A new range of...
Ranges.
A range of ranges.
Yes, well, sort of just the one range.
An oven type of, like an Alga?
Yeah, like a range.
I see. And where is that available?
eBay.
Is it of your own design, or?
Yes, I am selling a range on eBay.
And what's your eBay handle?
Range seller 9.
You've also been involved, have you not, in the Monty's Innovations product line?
Yes, I've invested quite heavily in this. This is a future project. It's a global zeitgeist, sort of multi-level project of globalization, infrastructure, layering of productivity elements into things which people can buy.
How delightfully vague. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom, some of your expertise, some of your funny anecdotes, some more harrowing anecdotes. I'd like to ask you one final question before you leave, and that is, what advice can you offer to young people out there today who are looking to become a part of the heady world of radio comedy but don't know where to start?
I would say reach for your dreams, but, sort of don't achieve your dreams and instead go into radio comedy.
Wonderful. Tiffany, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
And another thing, right? When I shat myself in the office, it was a valid artistic statement. I don't care what you say about basic decency or workers' rights. I am a visionary. And that time Tiff shat herself in the office, everyone was really supportive and kind. And when I do it, you want a HR department. Well, let me tell you something about the creative process. What you have to do is... Oi, are you fading me out? How dare you? My story will not be so...